Hey, good morning. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here with day 14 of our 14 days to get whatever you want, or how to achieve what you want in under 2 weeks. Again, we're going through the 13-step, 14-step process laid out in Think and Grow Rich originally, but taught by thousands of other people since then, including me. A process, a proven process that you and anyone else can use to get whatever you want, to achieve whatever you want. My goal, or my objective for this test period, was to lose 7 pounds in these 14 days. Now, I haven't gotten on the scale yet, just got out of the shower, as you can see, washing my hair, but I have a commitment to go make ravioli with my sisters this morning, or actually at noon, so I need to knock this video out quick before I can go up and do that. Today I wanted to do a wrap-up of all the steps and bring it all together, but I think there's something that's much more important, and I'm actually going to move this to a 7-day pre-work or preview to the 14 steps, because I think it's that important. It's all about the 6 ghosts of fear, is what Napoleon Hill calls them. I just call them the 6 major causes of fear, or fear, and the 7th, which is the most deadly of all. It is called the Devil's Workshop, I believe is what Napoleon Hill calls it. But I want to just briefly run over those and the key points in this chapter. It's chapter 15 of the original Think and Grow Rich book. But again, I said, I think I'm going to, as I share this with other people as a bonus or as just some informational materials, I'm going to actually do a 7-day, because there's 6 major fears, and then the Devil's Workshop, which is, you know, the biggie, which I'm going to share in a little bit, which I'm not telling you it now, but I think that and this topic in and of itself is worth 7 days, 7 different little individual videos to, number 1, discuss the fear, number 2, share ways that you can practically and easily overcome those fears. Well, I guess before you can overcome them, you have to realize, do I have this fear? Is this acting in my life? Because a lot of these fears are insidious. They creep into our lives through our subconscious. They creep in and are acting in our lives without us even knowing it, because they're running programs at a subconscious level and we're living at a conscious level, and so we're behaving and making choices and making decisions in ways that we don't even realize are being impacted by thoughts, beliefs, fears that are living in our subconscious. So we want to get down there and get them out of our subconscious. So I really think that this topic requires that we go through each of these fears or negative influences one day at a time, determine if you have them, understand what it is, determine if you have it, steps to clear it, get it out of your life, or take actions to create habits that will ensure that it never gets into your life. But let's go over what they are today. I gotta get a little comfy. Whoa, I have to get really comfy. Let's get a little comfy and let's go through this chapter, just a summary overview of it. And then tomorrow I'll add a bonus day and I will wrap up and talk about how you can apply all these steps. We'll visit, how did we do in these 14 days? Did we accomplish our goals or not? And if we did, awesome. What are we going to do next? If we didn't, what are we going to do to go back and hone in the skills of the steps that we might not be so sharp at? I know that I personally have a couple of steps in the process that I gloss over or struggle with. And actually one of those is this fear. And if we don't take care of these fears first and make sure they're not operating in our lives, the rest of the steps don't work very well. And I think that's why today I had the idea that I need to go back and I need to do this first. So, how to outwit the 6 ghosts of fear? Before you can put any portion of this philosophy into successful use, your mind must be prepared to receive it. If we're afraid or experiencing any of these basic fears, our mind isn't prepared. Our thought processes aren't ready to receive and put into action the ideas that come to us, the thoughts that come to us. We're afraid to do it, and so we don't take action. Fear will stop us in our tracks. It will kill any motivation or desire or willpower to take action and create things in our lives. And we want to make sure that we're not falling prey to that. So the first thing we need to do is we need to clear out indecision, doubt, and fear. And indecision is the seedling of fear. Indecision leads to doubts. And when we have doubts, they work together and they create fears in our life. And when we have fears, boom, action stop, dead in its tracks, and we don't get anything done. We don't do anything. We don't go anywhere. I know, for example, that fear and fears that I'm not acknowledging or admitting to myself is why I procrastinate. I already know that at a conscious level. So now what am I going to do about it? The 6 fears, the 6 basic fears are fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, fear of health issues, ill health, fear of loss of love of someone, fear of old age, and fear of death. Now, on the surface, you might hear that list and say, I don't have fear of any of those. I'm good, I'm cool. But almost everybody, at least in some time of their life, experiences these fears. And if you're lucky, you're somebody that doesn't have all 6 of them simultaneously operating in your subconscious and in your life. I would believe that when I was younger, say in my maybe not my teens so much, but my early 20s, I'm 100% sure I had every one of these fears operating in my life. And as a result of me giving into these fears, I had major health challenges, which resulted in chronic pain and health issues on and off for my whole life. I'm 58 years old, and I've had some of the weirdest health challenges that you can imagine. The only person I know who's had stranger health challenges than me is my older sister, and I can't even come close to hers. But I have learned and discovered through a lot of years of study and self-mastery and understanding, which guess what, I keep practicing because I'm not anywhere near there yet. I have several of these fears. I have symptoms of these fears. There's signs of them showing up in my life every day. But my mission this year is to eliminate all of them and just kick them to the curb and get them out of there, because I don't need them. They're not benefiting me in any way. They're not keeping me safe. They're certainly not making me happy. So why would I continue to tolerate them in my life? And you shouldn't either. None of us have to. And the way is to just choose not to. We have to decide that we're not going to let them get to us. So let's just explore them briefly here. Like I said, I'm going to do a 7-day thing where I go into each one of them in depth, so that you can be armed with what you need to do, and I can be armed with what I need to do to knock them out of my life once and for all. So again, we've gone through the six fears. The fear of poverty is by far the most widespread fear, I would say, in the world, or I don't know about the universe, because that's a whole other topic. But in this world, on this planet, the fear of poverty is the #1 most common, most widespread fear, and it's for many reasons. I mean, there's many root causes of it, but it's just so prevalent in our society. People like me who've really, any hardship I've had in my life has been pretty much imagined. It hasn't been real, or I've created it by having a poverty mentality or lack or scarcity mentality for different periods of my life when really I was never going to starve. I was never going to be homeless. I was never going to be, without what I need to survive. Now, part of that is because I believe I will always have what I need and want, and that the universe will provide for me. And that's just a belief that I've adopted. But simultaneously, I've had this lack of and scarcity and poverty mentality mixed with the universe will provide for me. That causes some real interesting experience in our lives. So what we want to do is we want to figure out, do we have a poverty mentality? Where did it come from? And we don't necessarily have to know where it came from to decide to eliminate it from our lives. But some of the things Napoleon Hill says that are still true today are the fear of poverty is so prevalent because human beings, unlike any other creature in nature, most creatures in nature feed upon each other or other creatures to survive. Human beings don't eat each other, but they feed upon each other via greed and these fears. And it's almost like good and evil shows itself with mankind as people wanting to be more powerful, or I want to say lord over other people because they have more money or they have more material possessions or something. And there's this whole culture in our society that's built up around that, and you know, it's so perpetuated and so prevalent, at least in America, that it's kind of mind-boggling. People do, and I don't believe this, but a lot of people believe, the vast majority of people believe, that there's this hierarchy and this pecking order of human beings, and based on how much money you have, you're better than, and you're more entitled to better treatment than somebody who's poor or somebody who has a different position. I mean, there's so much prejudice and ridiculousness around position power in America. Like, corporate executives deserve more, don't agree, than the people that are actually running the business and doing the business and creating what it is that that business sells and creates. And that all leads to fear of poverty, lack, scarcity mentality. You know, the Great Depression, think of that time, and Napoleon Hill does an excellent job describing that period of time, since this book was created during that period of time, and the widespread devastation that was created, and the increase in the fear of poverty that showed itself in the Great Depression. So many of us, and it used to just be men in Napoleon Hill's time, but now women as well. So many of us, our egos and our sense of value and belief and sense of self-worth is tied to what we do for a living, how much money we make, instead of how am I improving myself and what am I contributing to the world in a positive way. I choose to define my success or my belief in myself as, am I contributing to the world to the best of my ability and in a positive way? If I am, then I feel like I'm succeeding and making progress. It doesn't matter how much money I'm making. If I'm not, I feel like I'm failing and I'm not making progress. And I could be making, you know, $1 billion, and if that's how I felt, I would not feel like I was a success. But it's different for everyone. So poverty mentality. Some of the symptoms of fear of poverty show up as indifference. You know, you just don't care. You just take whatever you can get. Indecision, the inability to make a decision and to make decisions and choices and take action is a super strong sign of fear of poverty. You know, the habit of permitting others to do your thinking for you or make your decision for you. Just going through the motions of your life. And I'll admit, I have had periods of my life where I was just working my corporate job, doing a great job there, but I was just going along with everything and going along with the motions of my life and what the corporate line was or the corporate beliefs and philosophy. And whether mine aligned 100% with those or not, I just deferred to the corporate beliefs and values because that's where I was working. And so I was actually letting others do my thinking for me. I didn't last very long in that. I'm not very good at letting others do my thinking for me. Doubt. If you find yourself making alibis and excuses and blaming other people or not taking responsibility, those are signs that you're doubting. And doubt is a sign that you have you're a fear of poverty. Worry. Worry is another one. It's usually expressed by finding fault with other people or fault with yourself, neglect, overspending, neglecting your personal appearance. Okay, sorry, this could be considered neglect in my personal appearance. Overindulgence in alcohol or drugs, or I guess sex would probably fall in that one too. If you're self-conscious, lack of poise, these are all signs of fear of poverty. Overcaution, if you can't, again, that ties into indecisiveness. If you're overly cautious and you have to wait for everything to be perfect or right or 100% the way you expect and want it to be before you can act or make a decision, that's a symptom of overcautiousness. If you have to wait and you don't do your plans, okay, and here's my biggie, procrastination is a huge sign of fear of poverty. And again, I'm going to have to do some work on coming up with where did this fear of poverty come from in my life, and does it even matter? Does it matter where it came from? Obviously, I am showing signs and symptoms of fear of poverty. Why is that? Where have I picked that up from my environment or from other people, and what the heck am I going to do about it, because I don't want it operating in my life. But procrastination is a huge sign of fear of poverty, and I've already admitted that I am a procrastinator. And that's usually because it's something that I don't feel strongly about, or that I don't really believe in, or that I don't think I want to do, and then I will procrastinate and not do it. Again, there's a lot of discussion about money talks. Money has the ability to do so many things for us, and instead of that being less prevalent in our world, I think it's more and more prevalent in our world nowadays than it was even in Napoleon Hill's time. In Napoleon Hill's time, the haves versus have-nots is, I guess, how I'll describe it here. The number of those people was, the people that were super duper wealthy and rich was a very small number of the population. That's still true today. Wow. The have-nots was a large number and the majority of the population. And that, well, I guess that is still true today. The haves and the have-nots still are true today, but the haves have a lot more power over the have-nots. Anyway, money does allow people freedom and opportunity. And what we don't remember, and I think that the haves sometimes do a good job hiding from the have-nots, that any one of us can have whatever we want. We can all be havers. We can all be whatever we want. We can all have and do and achieve whatever we want. We just have to believe that we can. And I think there's this whole dichotomy that leads the majority of people to believe that they don't deserve, they're not good enough, they're not entitled to think the way they want to think, which, guess what? Our world is so abundant. There's so much overabundance of everything in our world. There's enough for everyone to have whatever it is that they want, and as much as they want of everything. We live in an expanding universe. So if more people want more will be created. But for so many years and so many decades and so many centuries, we've been taught to believe and led to believe that there's just this pie. There's this pie, and this is all there is in the universe. There's only this pie. And some people get a bigger piece of it than other people, but there's only ever this much pie. And that is absolutely, positively false. Again, expanding universe, infinite possibilities, and any one of us who decides and chooses for ourselves to create what we want can have whatever it is that we want. Every human being has the ability to completely control his own mind. Nature has endowed man with absolute control over but one thing, and that is his or her thoughts. Again, there are 6 basic fears, some combination of which every human suffers at one time or another. Most people are fortunate if they do not suffer from the entire 6. I think I said that. As you read, analyze yourself carefully and determine which, if any, of the 6 common fears have attached themselves to you. Again, they might attach themselves to you or have attached themselves to you without you even knowing it, because they sneak in through your subconscious because they're absorbed from your environment. Fears are nothing more than states of mind. One state of mind is subject to control and direction. That's the exciting part about this whole topic, is fears are just thoughts or states of mind that we think often, and so we start to believe them. But any thought, we have the ability to change and control. Man can create nothing which he does not first conceive in the form of an impulse of thought. Man's thoughts, impulses, begin immediately to translate themselves into their physical equivalent, whether those thoughts are voluntary or involuntary. And that's how some of these fears sneak in to our existence. If it is true that all thoughts has a tendency to clothe itself in its physical equivalent, and this is true beyond any reasonable room for doubt, it is equally true that thought impulses of fear and poverty cannot be translated into terms of courage and financial gain. Again, that's the whole thing, that only one type of thought can occupy our mind at a time. So if I'm thinking positive thoughts of prosperity and possibility and opportunity, doubt, fear, worry, lack, and scarcity can't work in my mind at the same time. My mind's going to work on whatever the predominant thoughts and feelings I am choosing to experience are. So I can either choose to experience those things, or the predominant thoughts, feelings, and beliefs of what is going on around me will be absorbed by my subconscious. Now, we We already know that our world is full of lack, scarcity, fear of poverty. The vast majority of people, from back in Napoleon Hill's time to our time today, the majority of people are absorbed with one or more of these 6 fears, fear of poverty being the major one, and almost everybody's thinking and feeling that way. Well, if you're around almost everybody that's thinking and feeling that way, guess what? If you're not controlling what you're thinking and feeling about poverty, it will automatically be coming into you as a fear of poverty through your subconscious. We don't want that. The next fear is the fear of criticism. And I can already hear you saying, I don't care what other people think. And I say that too. I don't care what other people think. And on a conscious level, I, at my age now, don't much care what other people think. But I do still hear those tapes playing in my head. You know, when I wear ponytails or pigtails or a weird hairdo or a weird outfit to the state park to go for a walk, I think, oh, you know, and I still do it, but I do think and have the thought go through my mind, well, what is somebody going to think when they see me walking around looking like this? But then I'll do it anyway just to push my comfort zone, because I know it just doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter what other people think. And consciously I know it doesn't matter what other people think, it only matters what I think, but that still affects me. I still wonder what people think when they see me doing a Facebook Live in a turban or with my hair wet. I mean, I wonder. Now, I'm still doing it, so obviously I wonder, I'm curious, but I'm not going to let it stop me, and that's the difference. So the fear of criticism. Do you think that you're afraid of people criticizing you or judging you? I mean, we all judge, we all ask questions, and other people judge us. It is inherent in our being, but we can choose not to be so judgmental, especially in things that just don't matter or that don't affect us. How many people do you know that get so bent out of shape and just go off in a vehement rant, raving about something, say politics or sexuality or something that happens on the other side of the world, that has zero impact on them, but they have such strong opinions of it, something that they've never experienced, but they know for sure that this is what they believe about it. How scary is that? I'm sure I used to participate in some of that, but it's been so long now I choose not to remember it. It's kind of like my health issues. It's been so long I choose not to remember that I have any. But fear of criticism, what are some of the symptoms of fear of criticism? Let's take a peek at these. Self-consciousness, you know, generally expressed through nervousness or timidity in your conversation. Are you shy, and do you speak more quietly, or do you stutter, or have a hard time expressing yourself? Lack of poise. Are you poised and confident? Personality. Lacking in firmness of decisions. Again, there's that indecisiveness. Ability to express your opinion. Do you sit timidly in a meeting or in a group setting, or even at a party, where you just will listen but not really participate because you're afraid of what somebody might think or say about what you happen to think or say, or how you might say something? Inferiority complex. Do you think that you're not as good as other people? Do you think other people are better than you because they have a different job, or they have a different occupation, or they have a different talent or a skill or ability that you don't see in yourself? Extravagance is another form of fear of criticism. The whole keeping up with the Joneses and keeping up appearances, having fancy cars and things you might not be able to afford because you want to have the appearance of being more than you are judging yourself to be, or you're afraid other people are judging you to be. Lack of initiative, just kind of going along, lack of confidence in your own ability or your own ideas, just kind of, and going with the flow, but not necessarily going with the flow in a positive way, because you're going with the flow, but something inside you says, this isn't really what I want to be doing or going along with, but I'm doing it out of fear of what other people will think. And then lack of ambition. People that are afraid of criticism generally adopt a lack of ambition because they're afraid if they step out or stand out in any way, shape, or form, they will hear about it. And I guess the one thing I want to make a comment on here is often the people that we expect to love and care about us the most are the most critical of us, and therefore they cause the most damage. We all know people who've had parents that totally F up their kids because they're always ridiculing or criticizing them or judging them in a negative way or making them feel like they're not good enough. I had a spouse who made me feel like no matter what I did, I wasn't good enough. And I don't know that he even did it on a conscious level, but he did it in so many ways that were disrespectful and made me feel like I didn't deserve to be happy or I wasn't good enough in all kinds of ways that it was just ridiculous, until I finally discovered and woke up and said, oh my gosh, this is so out of line and not me. I need to change the situation. And sometimes that's what we have to do. We have to limit time with people that make us feel bad or criticize us or judge us, especially when their criticism and judgment is totally off whack and out of kilter. The next one is the fear of ill health. And this is an extremely common fear that so many people have. And I'm going to skip to the symptoms of this, although I'm not sure that they're called out, because this is a really tough one for me personally, because I've experienced some very interesting health challenges in my life. And I don't think for a long time now I've been afraid of ill health. I've known that no matter what gets thrown my way, I'm going to figure it out. And once I adopted that philosophy, the fear of ill health didn't really have so much control over me, and I've really had relatively good health. Now, compared to other people, they would say, like hell you have, Sharon, you don't have good health. And there's evidence to the contrary in your life, but I choose to believe that I have excellent health and that I will always have good health and that I will always figure it out. But the reason things like epidemics or the flu or colds creep into people's lives is because they're afraid that they will catch them. If you believe wholeheartedly, 100%, that you cannot catch something, you won't catch it. Doctors have a much lower incidence or probability of getting sick, even if they're treating people with contagious diseases. And that's because they understand the science behind diseases and viruses and health, and they understand the probability of them actually becoming ill, and they know that it's so low they don't become ill. Yet people that might not even be around people that have a cold or flu automatically catch a cold and flu because they've heard about it on the news. And so they know there's this big bad flu or cold going around, and all of a sudden, even though they've been not around anyone that could cause them to catch the flu, they get the flu and they get sick. So fear of ill health is a good one. Autosuggestion is huge in combating or working on ill health. But here's the rub. Autosuggestion can work both ways. You can make yourself sick. Now, I didn't used to believe this, and this is a really hard thing for people to swallow, but I know with certainty that somehow, I don't know how I did it, but somehow I manifested a sudden cardiac arrest in my life. Now, that's as big as it gets. I was dead, and if I can manifest that and still be here, obviously I can manifest things like ill health, eye problems, migraines, pain, suffering in my life. And I don't know how it works exactly with illness and disease, but I do know that I've experienced those things. But then there's other people that go through their entire lives and they don't have any issues, no health issues, no pain, no suffering, no nothing. Why is that? How is that explained? He talks about hypochondriacs, being a hypochondriac, and I'm not sure I'm 100% down with how he describes it and how doctors would describe it necessarily. I think that if we have the ability to manifest diseases in our lives, then we're really not hypochondriacs, because once those diseases and those health issues and those challenges have manifested in the physical form in our lives, we're no longer a hypochondriac. That's actually shown up and created in our lives. I think that's true of cancer, and I know my sister had leukemia, and she would be all over me and saying I was full of shit, but I honestly believe that things in our life and experiences in our life and our thinking and beliefs and feelings and experiences open us up to the possibility of cells in our body becoming sick and creating cancer in our bodies and our lives. Now, she's a firm believer in God and religion, and she believes that praying and God saved her and cured her of her cancer. And that works for her. That works for a lot of people. You have to do whatever works for you. But some of the things they recommend or Napoleon Hill recommends, and I would 100% agree with and concur with, is that exercise reduces your susceptibility. It helps you to, getting out in the fresh air, being a part of nature, moving your body helps you to stave off illness and to reduce the possibility of illness, because your thoughts are on nature and abundance and positive things when you're moving and doing things. So you're less susceptible to illness or disease or thoughts of ill health or fear of ill health. Self-coddling is an example of a symptom of the fear of illness or the fear of ill health. Intemperance, drinking, alcohol, dependence on drugs, or any other thing that isn't good for us. Now it's really processed food. I honestly believe that processed food is killing more people and making more of us sick than alcohol and drugs combined. And this wasn't an issue back in Napoleon Hill's time, but obesity and all that comes along with that, and cancers, they are rampant. Things that didn't even exist in Napoleon Hill's time. Autism, all the diseases and things that we have now that we didn't have before. I think they have their root cause in our food source. I can already hear the hate mail, and I used to be a part of the food industry until just recently, so that's hard for me to say, but everything I've learned and everything I've known and everything I've seen really backs that up scientifically. Next, fear of loss of love. We've all had our hearts broken. If you're over 16, you've probably had your heart broken at least once. But the fear of loss of love of someone, and it doesn't have to be a love interest, it could be loss of love of your parents, loss of love of your children, loss of love of your spouse, that will show up in many different symptoms in our lives. The number one way it shows up is through jealousy or envy. It shows up as fault finding. Are you finding fault with your kids or your spouse? That's because you're afraid they're not going to love you. Gambling, which is really, I thought, an interesting one, but that is a fear of loss of love. I think it's because you want a shortcut to provide the people that you love and care about with things, physical things, that may or may not make a difference. Fear of old age, symptoms of the fear of old age. Again, as we get older, other fears seep in, like the fear of poverty, the fear of ill health, because a lot of times, if we haven't taken care of ourselves, there's a higher probability of us having health issues as we haven't taken care of ourselves longer. And the fear of old age, it tends to kill our initiative. It tends to make us do many of the things that are symptoms of the fear of poverty and the fear of ill health. You'll start to see those things creeping into your life. The final fear of the 6 major fears is the fear of death. I'm one of those people that's never really been afraid of dying, and that I didn't know why it was until I actually died. When I was 50, I had a sudden cardiac arrest and I died, and that totally negated my fear of death because of that experience and the fact that I'm still here talking to you. Helps me to know with 100% certainty that death is just a transition. It's a transformation from one state of being to another state of being. We're all energy. Energy and matter are the 2 things that exist in the universe, and they can neither be created or destroyed. They can only be transformed. So it only makes sense that as a human being, as a body, as matter and energy, we cannot be created or destroyed. We are just transformed into something else. Our being is always living. It's always a part of the oneness and all that is. And this is probably going way over a lot of people's heads, and it doesn't matter, because a lot of people have a fear of death. And the fear of death will stop us from doing just about anything. And a lot of the fear of death comes from our religious beliefs. I mean, I was raised a good Catholic, and, there was heaven, there was hell, there was the angels and God and the devils. There was, little purgatory in between that gave some of us hope, But for the most part, it was either you're going to heaven where it's going to be awesome, or you're going to hell with fire and brimstone. You're going to burn forever and die. Once you die, you're going to just be in this horrendous pain and torture for the rest of your existence, for all of eternity. Well, who the heck wouldn't that scare the hell out of? And nobody wants to die. But death is inevitable. We're all going to die. There's nothing we can do about it. You know, they say death and taxes, but you know what? Taxes are made up by man, so a lot of people don't pay taxes. Death, guess what? None of us are getting out of it. None of us are escaping it at some point. And the thing that makes people afraid, I think, is we never know when it's going to happen. It's going to be different for each of us. I'm one of those people that believes that when it's your time, it's your time. When it's your time to transition, you're going to go, and it will be in a way that is for you only. It's your journey. This life is your journey, and only you will know why or when it happens to you, the reasoning was for it. I mean, that's the only way that we can understand or wrap our heads around young people dying, or people dying of cancer, or people dying of heart attacks, or people dying in accidents and crashes, and dying before we think they should. And, you know, who are we to decide when people should die? It's, you know, the only way you can explain why some people go through, you know, decades of being in an old folks home or a permanent care facility. It's their journey, and we can't understand it. And we might see that and believe that we think that they're suffering, but maybe that's what they need for their transition into whatever's next. We don't know. So, old man worry, he talks about old man worry, and he does then share a really cool exercise that I think I'm going to wait. It's all about the 57 famous alibis written by Old Man If, and it's all these if statements, and I'll share that maybe tomorrow, but I'm going to share those for sure in the 7 days. We haven't gotten to the seventh thing yet, the 7th day, but I think I'll wait and share that because this is already getting kind of long, and it's if and then whatever excuse or alibi, and what you want to do is go through those and say, have I ever used any of these? Am I using any of these now? And if so, why? Because what I've learned over the last 13 days tells me that none of the alibis, none of the excuses, none of the things I'm making up or the stories I'm telling myself and I'm telling other people are real. They're just something that I created to give me off the hook from having to do what it is I know that I'm here for, what I really should do, what I really want to do. Now, the Devil's Workshop, this is a biggie because this is where all of the crap that's in our subconscious that's affecting us and creating us and causing us to be afraid of one of these 6 things come from. And the 7th basic evil, and I think it's evil that exists in the universe, is negative influences. And we are so impacted and so surrounded by negative influences. And negative influences are anything that impacts us, that causes us to not do things that are in our own real best interest and to make the world a better place. My definition, but I like it. But negative influences are all around us, and they're so prevalent and so insidious. They sneak in through the news. They sneak in through being around negative people. They sneak in through working in situations and environments that aren't good for our being. They sneak in and seep in through our subconscious, and we're surrounded by them all the time. And so it's critical that you create in your mind a barrier that won't allow these negative influences to seep in, or they'll automatically seep in. Since we're all surrounded in it, it's like being in the ocean with salt water. The salt's going to get on your body, and it's going to seep into you at a certain level because you're surrounded by it all the time. It just will. But if you want to not have it seep in, you coat your skin, or you wear a wetsuit or something to prevent the salt water from getting on your skin and drying out your skin. Same thing with negative influences. If you want to keep negative influences out of your life, and it's imperative that you do if you want to become what you're here to become and do what you want to do and create whatever it is that you want, you need to come up with a method to protect yourself and protect your thoughts from being negatively influenced by things outside of yourself. What I do is I create an actual bubble around myself and around my being. And I imagine that there's a protective, impermeable bubble around me at all times, and only positive, good, happy thoughts can seep in through my bubble. Everything else bounces off. It's repelled off. It just bounces off. And is it real? No, it's not a real bubble that I'm walking around in, although that'd be kind of nice from a joint standpoint with arthritis, but it would get the environment and keep the environment consistent. But the bubble in my mind allows me to separate out and stop negative things from just automatically seeping into my subconscious and into my being. So that's it for today. I will see you tomorrow for a bonus day, and we will talk about wrapping it all up, putting it all together, what to do next steps, how it went, what else we need to do and talk about to make sure that you can achieve and understand this process so that you can master and make a habit of creating whatever it is you want in under 2 weeks, because you can do that. You have the power to do that. You and I both do. So why don't we? Why don't we make the world a better place in 2 weeks? Works for me. Anyway, go out, make it an awesome day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.